Hello and welcome to today's content, which will be based on Tifa of her Final Fantasy VII Remake version, and this is basically going to be an early preview and unit analysis from JP. As I stated earlier in the Cloud video that I will not be doing more of these after I finish this batch of FF7 because of spoiler reasons, but yeah, basically I'll be going over her unit, analyzing what she has, and giving her a rating out of 10. And so without further ado, let's begin. Before we start, I have to say that she has a lot of abilities on the screen, but just bear with me as I go with them one by one and I'll explain them exactly because it's not too complicated. So for her main job takeaways, she is the monk main job. However, her version is a little bit different because it has the Final Fantasy VII Remake icon instead. For this, her basic attack, as you can see at the very left side, her basic attack is going to be 70% strike, 1 tile. However, when it's activated by her buff, for 3 turns, it turns into Wind Attribute Strike, and it's 131% damage for an auto attack. This is very, very strong, especially when she does not have AP, but keep that in mind. This is only when upgraded by her buff, which I will talk about very soon. Outside of that, her very first ability is going to be 131%. It's basically going to be an auto attack, but without the buff. As you can see, the tile range is only 1, so it's very short. Her buff, the one I was talking about, and a very, very important part of her kit is going to be the buff. I'm not really sure what the translation is, but yeah, basically she gets 40% attack, and it upgrades her basic attack ability, which is the 200% chance to inflict the explosive fist for 3 turns for herself. Her explosive fist is basically her auto attack, so it's just translated like weirdly. When she gets her EX upgrade, however, and this is very important, is that when she buffs herself with this, she also gains defense penetration up to 50% for 3 turns for herself. This is a lot because 50% defense penetration is no small joke. After that, we have our next ability. It is a 1 tile. However, it is a physical break barrier break, and it's a 210% hit ability. It's very strong. Her EX upgrade for this is basically it turns the damage from 210% to 250, so it hits very, very hard. As you can see though, the range is very short, but it is definitely deadly. After that, her AoE ability is going to be, I believe it's actually like the dolphin dive or dolphin kick from the animations. But yeah, basically, as you can see, it can decrease accuracy on the enemies once it hits. The range is also actually pretty far. It's very good. Her EX upgrade turns her AoE into a square AoE, which is very nice to have it when you're hitting, when you're trying to hit more than 1 unit. And yeah, basically she's going to be dashing to the unit and attacking them, and it'll be decreasing their accuracy. After that, I believe her 4-hit ability is actually the Star Shower. I think that's what it's actually translated into, and it hits 170% damage, which is very good. Not only is it good for chaining, but it also like sets up any other unit that is wind that's going to be attacking next. The range is not very far and the height range is pretty bad, but it still is very relevant, and this can actually also be used for physical breaking targets if maybe you didn't have any cast for her actual ability to break physical barriers. For her EX ability, she gets a very strong hit. It's basically like dual trigger, but it's going to be for strike damage because it hits twice. The range is also not too bad, it's 3 tiles. But yeah, it's basically like her version of dual triggers from the dual gunner subjob, but it's for strike damage. For her limit break, it's actually very, very good because if it lands with the base 45% chance, unfortunately it's 45%, not 67. However, hear me out. The chance to, when it inflicts the stun with the base 45% chance, it stuns for 2 turns, not 1. 2 turns is a significant amount of time. 1 turn is like, oh, I mean, maybe you got lapped in a turn, you're going to get chained, but 2 turns is pretty significant for a stun because you cannot really like cure a stun, so they're literally like doing nothing for 2 turns completely. Moving on to the subjob takeaways. For her monk main subjob, is she's gonna get actually guts or immortal spirit. Sadly, it's not on her paladin subjob, but it will be on her her monk subjob pretty much. After that, she gets another ability. It's a single tile. However, it does have a 25% chance to inflict a stun per turn on usage. So it's not bad, but it's definitely not her hardest hitting ability as we saw earlier. After that, she also gets another AoE ability. It's very short range, however, as you can see, it's shorter range than Kongo. But I mean, it'll help her with AoE because she doesn't have too much AoE outside of her dolphin kick. For her paladin subjob, she gets Sentinel, which is nice to have to mitigate damage, and more importantly, Saintly Wall to reduce physical damage taken by 50% for 3 times. It's very nice to have. She's also quote-unquote capable of tanking with Taunting Blade because she has Haste Generation. She does not have any slash modifiers, however, so having her use Taunting Blade over her like 210 or 250% damage modifier ability is going to be a little bit hard. For her ninja subjob, she's going to have Hide. Maybe you do not want her to tank and you want her to actually like not be hit as much as possible because she doesn't have much resistances outside of like her like getting hit from AoE stuff. So yeah, maybe you want to use Hide. Huton is going to be relevant because it's a typeless attack. Maybe you want a little bit more variety, but yeah. She doesn't have any 100% hit ability, so Decider of Fate is a possible chance to help her hit evasion units. And Utsusumi is very good for evasion. Maybe you want her to cheese with evasion like for 1 turn, because Utsusumi is 60% evasion for 1 turn. It is very good when you're approaching the enemy and you're trying to bait out an attack. So for the resistances and passives, as we can see, she has 10% to slash. It's not too high, but I mean it's better than 0 or negative. We have negative 10% to pierce, 0 to strike, 10% to missile, and 0 to magic. This is not bad overall. It is unfortunate for the piercing, but after that she doesn't really have any negative resists outside of piercing, so it's not bad. She's also not base negative 10% for magic, so keep that in mind. She does have 0 AoE and 0 single target resistance, unfortunately, but at level 120 with her master ability included, she does have a total of 9 base defense and 0 spirit. 9 base defense is not bad, however it's nothing like to brag about or go home about it. So her resistances to statuses, 50% to stop is nice to have, 50% to charm is very nice, mostly in, I'm not going to say live PvP only, but mostly live PvP. Having a 50% resistance to charm is very nice to have. She's also 10% resistance to immobilize. However, as you can see here, she does not have any resistance to paralyze and disable, which are becoming more either increasingly important to have resistance against and or units having it more often. For her master ability, she's going to get the Mono Wind, 10% HP, Wind Attack 15 for Wind Allies. She gets base defense penetration by 15% for herself and defense plus 5. Now you're thinking defense penetration 15%, that's kind of useless, but we have to remember that most of her defense penetration is going to be on her buff or through a TMR. But the 15%, it's not horrible, but it's not anything like too impactful. As you can see from her mobility, she has move 3, jump 2, very nice to have. The jump 2 will help her significantly in positioning, especially with most of her abilities being short range or her dolphin kick, which is long range. She has a cost 90 unit, not much to say about that, cost 90. For her passives, what I'm going to recommend is going to be basically her monk passive from her main job. The reason why is that it's going to give her strike attack, which is her only damage modifier or attack steroid in her entire passive kit, so it's kind of important. The increased acquired AP is also nice to have because she is kind of AP hungry. The Holy Knight protection is another thing I recommend, mostly because she does not gain damage or anything from the others. However, having more survivability with HP in general, because she has decent HP, and increasing her defense when she has 9 base defense is very nice to have. That means she can have a total of 21 base defense if she used the Holy Knight protection. 21 base defense is not bad at all. For niche and flex, the reason why I put Shadowrunner lower when it could have been a recommended passive is that it increases luck and agility. Luck is not too important for her unless you are banking on her being an evade build. And hear me out on this when I say, why would Tifa not go evade? It's like, well, if you have a 2B and Tifa, which one of them is going to be using the Tetra Esper to give them the most amount of evasion? It's going to be most times, because if you want to get min-max out of your evasion, it's going to be 2B, meaning Tifa will always be using a different Esper with much lower evasion rate compared to the Tetra/2B holder, which is why Shadowrunner is not as good compared to the other stuff I just basically said. She also does not have as much evasion as 2B in general, so she'll always be at a deficit there. And I will say Tifa is one of the fastest units in the game. Shadowrunner will put her even higher, but then you're missing out either on survivability from defense and HP, or if you're kind of crazy and you replace her strike attack up and her acquired AP up instead. After that, we do have Shukuchi on her niche and flex. Very nice for flex because if you need 4 move and 3 jump for some weird reason, then she has the mobility for it for sure. For her reaction ability, she has a very unique one where if she is hit by damage, she basically has a mini Asuna. Basically, she can heal herself for a percentage HP amount, and it dispels all ailments for herself. The one thing I do not know, and I'm not really able to test, is does this work on all ailments, such as like stop, disable, and all that, or do the ones that prevent her from taking action, such as disable and stop, can she basically like Asuna herself with this reaction ability? Depending if it's a yes or no, this reaction ability can either be like the most broken thing ever, or it's just mediocre at best. Outside of that, we do have the Paladin's Guard to counter physical damage, and then Poison Barb, which is kind of even more useless in general because most people don't use Poison Barb just because of how niche it is. Here we are for Tifa's rating out of 10. So at release, why I gave her a 10 out of 10 is because she is capable of 65% defense penetration for 3 turns, 15% without buffs. She has decent HP, decent attack, very high fast agility, and a base of 9 defense and 0 spirit. Keep in mind that while she has decent HP and you're like, wow, doesn't Tifa hit like super duper hard? Yes, you are correct because she has very high damage modifiers as a bonus and her abilities. Also, because she is strike type damage, which is very hard to mitigate against until we get like a lot more resources of it, which currently I believe anything meta / related to that is going to be the Phoenix Esper specifically, which is mostly only good used for fire units if you want to gain damage as well. It's going to be the Phoenix Esper, which only technically one person can only equip, like not like one unit, but like one person in your team, because you can't just use duplicate Espers basically. So yeah, basically it's very hard to mitigate against strike type damage. She has very, very hard hitting abilities, but they're mostly all single target based. She does have one AoE ability on her main job, but it does rely on her sub jobs and stuff for more AoE abilities, and they do not hit anywhere as hard compared to her single target ones. She has access to 2 possible damage types, which is going to be reliant on her sub job for her second one, which is Slash, like the Taunting Blade. Technically she has 3 because of Typeless from Ninja, but that one, the damage modifier is really, really low compared to most stuff in general, so I didn't really want to include it, but it is viable. She actually has very flimsy resistances without any strong resistances. However, she does have Immortal Spirit, which is what she will be surviving most of her, what most of her kit's gonna be surviving on. She has physical barrier breaks, she has a decreased accuracy, she can chain up to 4 hits, and she has a stun for up to 2 turns. This is all on her main job ability, which is very strong in general. It doesn't have the more volatile ones such as like disable, paralyze, but she does have her own little bit of like stuff like that, like stun. Like I said earlier, she has an Asuna like a reaction ability, but until we have further testing of it, of if it can cure disable and all that, or if she can't use it because she's disabled, then we'll have to see how effective it is. Because she has 3 move and 2 jump, it allows her like better place her abilities and attacks. She does have access to Shukuchi if she really wanted to go bonkers and just have like free roam everywhere. She does have a lot of mobility from that. She does have very high AP cost, unfortunately, on the average, but she does have acquired AP up on a passive option, so if she regens AP or like uses TP abilities, she can get a lot more AP than necessary. Well, not necessary, but a lot more AP in general. She has a basic attack upgrade that is very significant, and as I said earlier, she has the Immortal Spirit and or Saintly Wall options. Because these are all spread out, however, like the Immortal Spirit and the Saintly Wall, you have to choose carefully on what you want to do, on how you want to choose your survival. So for her future and longevity, and why I gave her a 9 through 9.5 out of 10, because we do not know anything else except for what we know right now, is because she's going to be rely on either evasion or Immortal Spirit for her survival due to low resistances. Keep in mind, when you're reliant on evasion, is she going to be paired up with another evasion unit, and then is she the main evasion unit? Because there's only one unit like in your party, kind of like Phoenix, that you can use Tetra. Only one unit in your party is using Tetra who has the highest evasion unit like panel stats in general, it's going to be Tetra. And since there's only one Tetra, there's always going to be one person that is missing out heavily in terms of evasion. So yeah, it depends. She is going to be relying on either evasion or mortal spirit. It's going to be a little bit hard for her to gain more defenses or resistances in general. She has very short to mid-range, high hitting abilities. Her AoE is actually long range, however it does not hit as hard, like nowhere comparable. It's over, what is it, 40, 50, 60% damage difference. Like, it's just very different. Like, she's mostly going to be used her short and mid-range abilities for very high damage. She's also very reliant on 2 to 3 turns of buffs for her full effectiveness, not only because if she is reliant on her Immortal Spirit or Saintly Wall for survivability, she needs a turn for that. But she also needs turns for her defense piercing ability, as well as her Explosive Fist, which is her basic attack. So basically she needs 2 to 3 turns of efficiency. On maps that are really small, 1 turn efficiency, Tifa is going to struggle a bit to get out a full usefulness without just going like either balls deep in or just unable to do anything pretty much because she's not able to set up correctly. As I said earlier, she's very reliant on her buff for 65% defense penetration. Without it, she's stuck at 15%. She has no 100% hit abilities nor accuracy passives, so if she ironically loses against herself in terms of the evasion battle, because it's going to be up to RNG in the end, she has no reliable attacks against herself for evasion. She doesn't have a negative magic resistance. However, because it's at 0% and she has 0 spirit, that means she will be an easy target for magic in general. And she does not have any AoE resistance, unlike Cloud, meaning if she gets hit by chip damage by magic, she will be taking the full amount of damage from that unless you mitigate against it properly. She actually has no party buffs outside of her Paladin subjobs, so she is a very selfish DPS, and her AI is going to be much harder to control without her just running in straight up. She has very mediocre AP generation abilities, unfortunately. Even with her acquired AP up passive, most of her TP abilities on her main job specifically, or like the Immortal Spirit, is like around 24 TP, so she's not getting as much TP. If she uses Saintly Wall or something like that, she'll definitely gain more, but it's still not enough considering her AP cost. She kind of needs an AP generation ability, TMR or something, anything that helps her with that. Despite her having very high DPS, she is reliant on the enemy not having strike resistance and or defense. If the enemy is able to survive her onslaught of 65% defense penetration and her strike damage, then after those 3 turns she heavily loses out in terms of her DPS, because if they have strike resistance, then she's not going to be hitting as hard, and once she runs out of her 3 turns of her firepower for her defense penetration, she's not hitting hard anymore. She's just going to be an auto attacker that's not hitting as hard anymore. That's why like certain situations like Cloud, who has 60% defense penetration on his passive, it has no conditions that needs to be met, it's always reliant. Tifa is reliant on her buffs uptime to make sure she's dealing enough DPS to kill him in time. If she's not, then she heavily loses out on her efficiency. She's also very limited in her DPS vision card options. It's mostly due to being strike damage and wind. Preferably her own vision card is going to be highly recommended for efficiency in terms of damage and survival, as well as it's going to be very strong for strike, but it's going to be mostly only wind related, unfortunately. You could put Tetra on her, which helps with her damage, but does not help her at all in terms of survivability, evasion, etc. Like, she's just missing out on vision cards in general. Until there are better strike resistance defensive options, however, her DPS, while not as high, like the raw high enough as like 2B, she does have very high relevancy in her DPS because strike damage, as I said earlier, is very hard to mitigate against, so her DPS is going to be relevant until we get someone that can block out strike damage reliably with like vision cards or a good setup. While Tifa is a selfish DPS, she'll be a frontline a lot of the time because she's just running in. It can make it very difficult to synergize with her due to her kit. You're going to need people to either run up with her at the same time or be out there first. But because she is also super fast, which is actually a problem in her way she plays the game, she's going to be attacked first before you can even hit a tank if she's too fast, so it's something to consider. Overall, we go to her TMR chase rating. Unfortunately, I gave it only a 6 out of 10. The reason why is that it's an accessory, which accessories are usually good. However, the HP is only 277, which is very, very poor. The attack is 37, which is not really that great. Defense is 9. There are way better like accessories that can give you more defense and more benefits. The crit rate is 12, which is not too bad, but there's no agility here. There's no high amount of HP. It's definitely lacking in stats already. For the active ability, it's going to not only increase her attack percent, but it's also strike attack, but only for wind allies. It's a big AoE, however, one cast and it's reliant on wind allies, specifically for the strike attack. This is very, very selfish and niche TMR. There's not going to be many situations where you can be using this and gain like as many benefits compared to other TMRs in general. So here we are with stuff that can work well with Tifa. First off is going to be 2B. The reason why 2B is going to be very good is that her and Tifa are going to be like kind of like sisters, where they're going to be very effective with each other because they both are able to go evasion, though one of them will be highly like reduced in terms of evasion just in general because of not only Esper choices but also because of their kit. They have very good synergistic vision cards, basically 2B with her own and then Tifa with her own, but it's because it has mono wind benefits, they'll both get like almost equal benefits from it, so they'll be doing very good with it. They will have to watch out for ice units, however, but outside of that, they're going to be surviving on evasion, and evasion in general is very annoying unless you have the proper tools to basically fight it off. After that, we have Halloween Leela. This is a question mark I should have put here, but Halloween Leela does not have her EX yet. However, she still has her entire kit, which is she can still heal, she can still full raise, she can protect and shell Tifa if needed. Shell being like more important on Tifa because a lot of 100% hit abilities that do like a lot of damage is going to be magic until we get more 100% hit abilities for physical that can like kill in one shot. Shell can definitely prevent her from dying in one shot. It can even prevent her like immortal spirit and proccing in one hit. Ayaka is here not only because she is wind, but because her basically her supporter kit, she does have protect and shell just like Halloween Leela, but she's also able to grant AP when she is healing. This is very relevant for Tifa, who is able Tifa needs AP, and if she's not able to get the proper amount of AP, Ayaka can slightly push her over the edge to get a little bit more per turn. And then we have Aerith. Aerith is going to be good because not only does Aerith give a magic barrier that can help Tifa survive against magic compositions, she also is able to give defense slash a spirit depending on the ability she uses, as well as granting AP as well. This is all going to be helping Tifa in general because these three supportive units are basically going to be behind Tifa, trying to help her survive and deal more DPS. While her and 2B are going to be mostly on the front lines because of how the AI reacts and that they are DPS. With that being said, obviously Bells is going to be very good for her. However, she is unique in that she can actually use Odoa's Apron. Keep this in mind that if you are using her passive, her buff for defense penetration, she does not need to use Odoa's Apron because they both give 50% defense penetration for 3 turns. However, Odoa's Apron does give AP generation for 3 turns along with the defense penetration, so it's not a bad choice. After that, we do have 2B's TMR, which increases your acquired AP by 80% if it's maxed. That can stack with her passive, giving her a total of 120% of AP generation. I mean, not AP generation, acquired AP, which is very nice to have when she has to use TP abilities to set up in the first place. Outside of that, her main defensive options for clothes in general, not TMRs, is going to be the Santa Clothes for evasion, and then the Elf Cloak if she wants to not be one-shot by like Pierce units. I believe there's not too many units that are Pierce that have 100% hit abilities, but once Glaciella gets like her 100% hit, like her Surefire Burst when she gets EX, it's going to hurt. Same with like Victora when she gets her EX because she's an Ice unit and Pierce. We don't know if she'll get 100% hit rate yet. But yeah, basically that's her options for Pierce resistance. And we arrived to the end of the video. As always, if you like my early analysis and unit preview basically of Tifa, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next video, which will take a little bit of time to come out, which is going to be Aerith and Barret. But yeah, until then, peace out.